there is just something unexplainable of being able to see a piece of fruit, a piece of vegetable just grow, and you realize how long it takes for that piece to actually from seed to mouth.
In today's episode, I'm out and about in London, discovering the story behind community-led fruit trees and orchards in Bermondsey, and discovering one very surprising tree in the process. Welcome to the Green Urbanist, podcast for urbanists fighting climate change. I'm Ross. My guest and tour guide today is Divya Hariramani. She is a sustainability consultant and associate director at Longevity Partners, a London National Park City ranger, and runs an Instagram page called Fruity Walks, where she is chronicling the amazing and sometimes surprising fruit trees of London and beyond. She is fascinated by all aspects of sustainability, from low energy engineering to growing fruit trees in her South London neighbourhood. I joined her for a walk around Bermondsey, where she told me about the stories of 2 urban orchards and how the community has come together to grow fruit on forgotten spaces. Since this conversation, I've been spotting fruit tree of all kinds all over the city, including exotic and surprising finds like banana trees thriving here in the city. Take a look yourself, there may be more food growing around you than you realise. Okay, we are here. I'm here with Divya. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. Can you just introduce yourself, please, for the listeners?
Hey Ross, thank you so much for having me. My name is Divya. I'm a sustainable design and well-being consultant here in London, specialising in implementing holistic ESG strategies in buildings that are undergoing deep refurbishment. That's what I'm specialising in. Kind of net zero, but just beyond that when it comes to health and well-being and social value, circularity, wastewater. And I am also a London National Park City ranger, like yourself, but here in Southwark. And I run a page on Instagram called Fruity Walks, which is me just finding random fruit trees in the city.
Okay, let's start with Fruity Walks, maybe, and then we'll come back to the other more serious stuff. Why did you start Fruity Walks, and what are you sort of hoping to achieve with it?
I started Fruity Walks back in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, I guess as a creative outlet. I was fortunate enough to keep my job and everything, but it felt this global feeling of just wanting to do something more and just get out of your head a little bit. And so it started with really quite funny idea of I was back in Spain back then. I was in a driving camp in the middle of the summer in a village called Cuenca in Spain, and I kept walking around because there was nothing else to do, and I just encountered so many fruit trees on my walk, so many fig trees, and I got back every night and just sort of searched fruit tree like maps, Cuenca, and nothing came up, but funny enough, it came up for London. So I started looking at lots of fruit tree maps for London online. And it sort of sparked all of these ideas of, wait, like this cannot be just me encountering randomly a fruit tree. Like, this has to be a thing. We should be having fruit trees in all of the public parks. And so I found out about London National Park City back then and just thought about this idea and pitched it at the 100 Voices event. Yeah, and it kind of started from there. The idea was to plant all these orchards in public parks, and it just grew from there.
No pun intended. So I'm ashamed to say that you were the one who told me that there's an orchard in Victoria Park, which is my local park that I've lived beside for 5 years. And I've definitely walked past it, but I never just looked close enough to realise they were fruit trees. And now I've made it part of my daily route to go through it. And I really enjoy it because it's a really beautiful thing is to actually see food growing and to track it over time. And I'm really excited when it gets into like early autumn to maybe go and pick an apple or a pear and actually, enjoy it. Is that part of the appeal to you?
Completely. I grew up in Madrid, but my family come from a small village in Segovia, and they're vegetable farmers. And I grew up seeing vegetables and fruit trees grow since I was very young. So there is just something unexplainable of being able to see a piece of fruit, a piece of vegetable just grow. And you realize how long it takes for that piece to actually, from seed to mouth. And it's definitely part of the appeal for fruity walks. And it's something that everybody should experience. Not everybody comes from villages. Not everybody has access to that. And it's such a powerful thing, especially for kids, to be able to go to the park and see, exactly like you say, in December, in January, in February, just a bare tree, and then suddenly the leaves come out, then the flowers come out, then there's like little baby apples, and it keeps growing and growing until the late summer you get to see that apple and get to pick it. It really is transformative, I think, how people then see food and fighting food waste as well.
Yeah, because you'll obviously get a lot of the native trees like apples and pears, but I've also seen on your page some really strange tropical trees around London that just seem totally out of place.
Yeah, I think that was the most exciting thing about this whole thing. And I started it off just looking at my neighborhood and realizing that there was apple trees and pears. And when you start looking closely, you start seeing fruit trees everywhere. Like, it's just this magnetic thing. And just walking around and through London National Park City, a lot of people reached out to me and said, "Hey, have you seen the avocado tree?" And I was like, "What? No way." And absolutely, there's avocado trees, pomegranate trees, grapefruit trees, apricots, peaches, plums. I mean, everything, really. Once you start looking, actually banana trees as well, with baby bananas on them. I was screaming when I saw that. I was like, well, this is it, right? What's next? A mango tree. So, if anybody is listening and knows of a local mango tree in London, let me know. But it's really interesting. We have a microclimate here in London, and it's actually, if you look close enough, you'll be able to find really exciting things.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. I've been reading a really good book recently called Darwin Comes to Town. I think this is the third podcast episode I've mentioned it on because I'm just like geeking out about it so much. It's about how the urban environment drives the evolution of different species. And one of the things he talks about in it is the fact that because cities have their own microclimate, because of the urban heat island effect, they're generally warmer than surrounding countryside, various different factors like that. It means that often tropical species fare better in cities. Well, tropical, foreign, exotic species, non-native species, fare better in cities often than natives do because it's just a different kind of climate, which I was astounded by. So maybe that's one of the reasons why, against all odds, a banana tree does survive here.
Very interesting. Exactly. Yeah, that makes sense.
Should we have a look over at your orchard and talk a bit more about that?
Let's do it.
So we're here. We're in St. James Churchyard, which is actually a beautiful space. We're beside a school. We've got some apartment buildings around, some houses, and we're standing in the middle of an orchard surrounded by fruit trees. You explain maybe what we're seeing, but then also tell us a bit about the history of the project.
Yeah, definitely. So this is literally 2 minutes away from my house in Bermondsey, and I discovered this just completely in one of the nature walks during the pandemic as well, and realized that there were an existing pear trees and 3 apple trees here. How they were planted and why they were planted is beyond my knowledge. They were here, and they are just incredibly beautiful species that they're quite small as well, but they are always full of fruit. And right now, today, June 15th, there's still baby fruit, as I like to call it, and we're looking at a pear tree with pears the size of our thumb, I would say.
Right.
Really beautiful, really special.
Not edible, yes.
Not quite. It needs a little bit more time to grow. but really beautiful. And this is what led actually one of the main projects that I have undertaken with London National Park City through a connection, which is Sarah Vaughan. And she's been an incredible support in all of this and the powerhouse to make this happen, because we're both from here, and this is such a beautiful space for both of us that we just wanted to expand this. And we have gone ahead and planted 7 species of fruit trees next to this existing orchard. But I wanted to bring Ross here to where it all began, because these are really special, and I'm so happy that it's next to a park where a lot of children are, and 2 nurseries, because hopefully they get to see this, and as we were talking about, just being able to understand the whole process as they grow up.
So there's 6 trees here, and these were existing. You didn't plant any of these?
No, these were here.
Do you know how old they are?
Not entirely, but I believe last time we were here with Leslie from also London National Park City. She is an absolute expert and icon in the tree world.
An encyclopedia, walking encyclopedia.
Oh my goodness. I think she said something like 10 years at least.
Okay.
Yeah, but perhaps we can walk towards the ones that we planted, and I can tell you a little bit more about those. It's really cool to be doing a podcast on the move.
Yes, exactly. They're good. I mean, they're good size. They're beautiful. They're shade giving. I mean, apple trees don't really get that big anyway. But this one in particular in the middle is gorgeous.
It's just so much baby fruit on it. It is honestly one of my favorite times of the year. So we can start with the pomegranate tree, which one of the things about doing this project was realizing that things are not as easy as you thought it would be because you can, well, first of all, it's a bit of a fight with the local council, trying to collaborate as much with them, but there's always things that just don't work out. And we were all meant to be planting this as a community, but then it just got planted just randomly one day without no one actually realizing. So things like that. And then a couple of the trees are not doing that well just because they came from the nursery already with an existing problem. So it's a journey. We'll get this thriving, but it's a journey. So for example, we're looking at the pomegranate tree. This one is not doing that well, but we'll save it. And then we have also a strawberry tree. We have a fig tree right in front of us. Doesn't have any figs yet, but you can see the beautiful fig tree leaves. Just beautiful. So this is a really exciting one. Strawberry trees also not doing that well. We need to see what we do with that. We have medlar, we have quince, we have persimmon, we have cherries, and yeah, this is our lovely exotic fruit orchard.
Fascinating. Yeah. What was the sort of thinking behind it? Was it just an idea to get a variety in and see how they do?
Yeah, definitely, because the council and the City of London want to be planting, I don't know how many, 1 million trees. And instead of just planting usual trees, which are beautiful and great, but come on, fruit trees are a lot more fun. So Sarah was just she's always been such a support and wanted to set this up as a fruit tree, exciting fruit trees as well, inspired by some of the work that I do on my page. And we just wanted to create something that would last for a long time, and that is something that the kids of the nurseries can be part of. We really want to make a communal board in a way where you can look at what tree is which one. So a board with all the names and all the fruit trees painted on them, because I think that's one of the most valuable things, actually, because I'm super into trees. I love fruit trees, but I'm terrible at identification. Sure. I would not know if this is like a fig tree or that's a cherry tree. But if you have a board with all of them really clearly labeled, that's when you empower people to also be part of it.
Yeah, there is a great information board in the Victoria Park Orchard where they say what the trees are, and then they tell you a little description about them, which is not like to academic or scientific. It's quite like, written for the layperson, and then it tells you when the fruit is ripe and when you can eat it. So, I mean, great. What else do you need?
Literally, it's also about writing a little bit about the folklore. I find it really interesting, like what these trees originally were thought as. The cherry bark was used when the full moon was up, and I don't know, things like this. So I love that project, and it's been a big inspiration for what we want to do here.
Great. So this is, the trees are here. Most of them are doing really well, but as you said, still ongoing because you want to get some more information in. In terms of the process, who paid for the trees? Like you said, you had to get permission from the council, so I presume they own the land.
Yeah, it was all their trees, so they paid for everything because of their initiative to plant a lot of trees in the area, especially in North Bermondsey, which is missing quite a lot of tree coverage. So it was all an initiative from them, and we were just the mind behind it, just guiding them in what we wanted as a community to have in the space.
Brilliant. Well, I hope there's more forward-thinking councils out there as well. Yeah. Anything else you want to say while we're here, or should we sort of make a walk towards our next place?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
Great. Maybe as we go, I can tell you a bit. Well, actually, so mulberry trees. Can you eat mulberries? I don't think I've ever eaten one.
Yes.
You can. I've never had a mulberry. But
they're so delicious. That's so good.
There is a famous mulberry tree in Bethnal Green, which is rumoured to be something like 400 years old, which I don't know if that's true. But it's this very grand, dark tree that is actually at one of the entrances to Victoria Park. But it's within the grounds of the London Chest Hospital, which has been closed for, I think, about 10 years and awaiting redevelopment. So the tree is there. The developer, in their initial plans, wanted to remove the tree. Local community were in uproar about that because it is a local landmark and it's very well loved. I think it has some like sort of folklore history attached to it. The developer said, okay, we won't remove it, but we're just going to move it to another part of the ground. So they were literally going to dig up the whole thing, been there for hundreds of years, move it to sort of the central green space they were planning in the master plan, and leave it there. The council apparently were convinced by this. They gave it permission. Someone took the challenge to the High Court and challenged it on the grounds that they weren't doing enough to protect what was a protected tree. It was legally protected. And they won. And the High Court threw out the planning the planning permission, and they have to basically go back. So that shows you sometimes the power of community and the power of an enigmatic tree.
Completely. The community has such attachment sometimes to these trees, and it's so great to see it because it forms, again, it just shows how it forms such a core part of our communities and our cities. That's so good to hear.
Okay, we've just walked around the corner under the railway tracks and into this little secret hideaway here. It's a really quiet little sort of meadow area. Can you tell me what this is?
Yeah, we're at the Rural Estate Orchard that was planted last year in November. And it's an estate. The Rural Estate is in North Bermondsey. It's very dense residential area, and they have this area of just greenery that was very bare. There was nothing here, and the whole community, there's a very strong sense of community here, and they just wanted to do something special and do a little bit of a greening project. And so with the help of London National Park City and in Bermondsey, everybody, once you start doing initiatives of trees, you start meeting all the tree people. And so we all came together and just helped hands. And we created together this beautiful, beautiful orchard that has at least, I think last time I checked, was 24 different types of fruit trees with apples, pears, cherries, apricot, peaches, and a hedgerow of so many. We planted so many different hedges, like nuts and berries. It's honestly, it makes me a little bit emotional actually coming back here after a couple of months not seeing it, because it was genuinely one of the most fulfilling days of my life, being here with the community and planting it and actually learning how to plant a tree from scratch was beautiful. So I have to thank Leslie a lot, Sarah as well, because they were troopers and they were showing everybody how to do it, involving everybody, making it such an inclusive day for everybody to get involved. Young people, older people, really great.
Wow, what a beautiful thing. And I think as an urban designer, I mean, maybe for people who live in the UK will know what you mean when you say an estate. For people who may be unfamiliar with it, after World War II, there was a lot of empty spaces, from bomb damage and that kind of thing. And they were filled a lot with this sort of modernist architecture that was, meant to rehouse people. And a lot of it is quite strange because it sort of left a lot of weird spaces that were sort of not really being used. So you do end up all over the country in estates with sort of big areas of green that nobody really uses, nobody really knows what to do with it, doesn't really have a function. And I suppose the as an urban designer, it's annoying and frustrating because you think, it could have been so much better. But actually the opportunity there is now we have these resources that can be reimagined. And I love this as an example of the community coming together with a bit of guidance from someone like Leslie, with a vision, and then just making it happen. Like, so inspiring. And it is so beautiful to stand here and just admire it.
Yeah, it's right next to a school as well, in this case. And just when it was thought through with the community, there's been a huge group of people from the community behind this, and getting the school involved, thinking about how this will then be opened to the school, because right now it's gated, but they're thinking about opening it up as a sort of back garden for a school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's honestly, and just to think that kids that are going to come here, they're going to think, they're always going to think about this orchard, and this is something that they've lived with, and you come back here in 50 years and this is going to still be here, really productive space for a lot of time to come. So
what a great educational tool as well, for city kids to, you imagine you maybe when you leave, when you take your school holidays in, at the end of June, you see on your last day the size of these little pears and these little apples and stuff, and then you come back in September and suddenly they're ready to eat and they've grown. And maybe, I don't know if they're doing that, but maybe they could bring in a sort of, harvest into their educational curriculum, and talk about how to use the fruit and how to cook with it and all that kind of stuff. I can just see so many possibilities.
Completely. A lot of foraging as well, educational, and harvest parties, as you say. Honestly, how are we, we all should have harvest parties in our community. It's the best thing, just coming together and picking that fruit, being together, using it, learning incredible and really fun ideas of how you can use all of this together, and celebrating. I think that's one of the things that we've lost a lot in the city. Everything is so isolating, and in most cases you don't know who lives next to you, underneath you, on top of you. And having these occasions is so exciting. I think when you're renting a place or when you buy a place, you should have as a manual of okay, this is your house and here is your local harvest party and here is your local orchard. Everything should come with this pre-assessed. Yeah.
Love that idea. Should we have a walk around? You can tell me about some of the trees that are here. So to describe it for people who are listening, we've sort of got on the edge of the site, you've got, as you said, the hedgerows that are planted, which are still quite low, but I can see them, as they come into maturity, they're going to be really, bushy and wild and tangled. And then at the centre here, we've got this long grass growing that really has a kind of a meadow, quite rural sort of meadow feel.
No mow May, but forever.
Right. Is there a sort of management strategy? Is there anyone, who has to come in and do management on it?
I believe so. I believe the council is also involved in taking care of these trees because it needs watering and care. And I think that's going to be part of council, but also part of the community.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're next to a cherry tree. This one's really big. It's shooted out massively. No cherries, and I believe Leslie was mentioning that in the first couple of years, even if some fruit grows, you have to take it away to make the tree more productive in the future.
So you've got, what people would typically call weeds coming through.
Yes. Lots of wild things growing here. Absolutely, biodiversity to the max. Literally every square of this place is being used for as much biodiversity as we possibly can get here.
It's very much unmanicured, and I think we need to rethink our relationship with weeds. The proper term is pioneer plants. It's because they populate places that are, that have are lacking, are not developed, are not mature, and these weeds, as we call them, are the ones that come in first and populate the place, and then after a couple of years, their numbers will sort of die back as it becomes more mature. So just give it time, and you'll see it change, and it's beautiful.
Exactly. There's no such thing as a weed that is not useful. Everything is there for a reason.
So you've got the trees have a little tag on them, which comes from, whatever the nursery. What does it tell you? It has the name in Latin?
In Latin?
Malus baccata. No idea what that is.
I don't know which one this is. Maybe.
Would love if they would put them in English as well, yeah. common tongue.
Yeah, that's also an idea, to have the tags in the trees, and we were thinking about doing them with felled trees. So the wood of these felled trees that we would then serigraph the names there, and just put it here, because currently, as you were mentioning, they're from the nursery, made out of water-resistant kind of plastic material. Which, again, it's already here, so we don't want to throw this to the ground.
Might as well keep it.
Yeah, might as well keep it. But let's see if we could do something else with some wood.
Oh, there's a lemon here on the ground. A wild lemon appears.
Blown through. Oh, maybe we get another lemon tree.
Just see what happens. It might sprout.
Exactly.
Okay, we're leaving the orchard and my shoes are full of seeds. I'm going to take a minute, pull a few of those off my socks. Sticky seeds. They are using us to spread themselves, and they're going to grow elsewhere, wherever we deposit them, basically. They have evolved to stick to fur, but apparently shoes just as good. Okay, where is this lemon tree?
So the lemon tree is in someone's garden here in the estate, and rumor has it that it's a tree that came from Malta. The owners either are from Malta or had a really great trip in Malta and they wanted to bring something back. The lemon tree was born, and it's been here for more than 30 years. I think that's something that I'm very passionate in, fruity walks. It all started as so fun, there's an avocado tree, but actually there's a lot of the stories behind the trees that are the most interesting part of this project, and understanding why these trees are here, and they're nearly always related to people wanting to bring a piece of home with them into their homes here.
Wow,
and
yeah,
we're
fantastic.
Here.
There it is.
Apparently they're actually quite nice. Rumor has it, yeah.
A London lemon.
Yeah, exactly.
New delicacy. Well, it's full of little bugs going around to the various flowers.
Yeah.
See, one lemon, a single lemon.
There's one there. There's a couple more in the parts.
Oh yeah, up on the top. Yeah, I see them now. So is this the season when they come ready to pop?
Lemons, I've seen lemons in this tree pretty much all throughout the year. So I think they're more of winter harvest. But we still have some now, so yeah.
Amazing. Should we go before the owner comes out and wonders why there's a person with a microphone outside their house? Can you tell me a little bit about the work you do in your day job?
Yeah, so I'm a sustainable design consultant, focusing a lot on health and well-being as well. So what we do is engaging with big clients that have really huge commercial assets, either commercial or residential, and helping them not just reach net zero, but think about the project in a really holistic way, and engaging with the structural teams, the MEPs, the architects, landscape architects, so that everything is more cohesive in terms of sustainability, that we have strong targets that we can push for, and just find innovative ways that we can make these projects interesting and exciting.
Are you an engineer?
Yeah, I'm a mechanical engineer by background, and it's been useful for this. But again, I think being in this space as sustainability consultant, I've become more of a, what do they call it, jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. And I know just enough about architecture, I know just enough about engineering, just enough about structure, and I try to get by and just think about all of the interesting innovation pieces that we can intertwine with all of the different industries.
Try to know enough about everything to be dangerous. That's the goal. I think so many of the people that I've talked to on the podcast are, I mean, as you said, you have a master's degree in renewable energy, but you don't learn everything. Even if you do go to a good university, there's still so much you have to learn, and so much of sustainability now is so cutting edge and breaking news basically, that every year we're learning new things. There's new models, there's new predictions, new methods. So it is really very much about just doing a lot of reading, talking to people, listening to this podcast.
Yes, and I'm 29, and at the beginning of these types of works and this type of projects that I'm involved, I did feel a bit uncomfortable in the sense because you're the youngest by a lot, and it makes you kind of doubt yourself a little bit. But actually, when it comes to sustainability and where we're going with everything, as you were saying, sustainability is an old thing. It's been around for a long time, but the way that we are reframing it right now is accessible for everybody. So you don't have to be 50, you don't have to be 60 to be really informed, and it just takes a lot of self-learning and reading and literally listening to podcasts and just finding information, talking to other professionals. And we've had this discussion before, but the sustainability regeneration world industry is so open to collaboration. It is incredible how many people will just open up and say, oh, well, I've been doing this. How about you try this and this opportunity, this initiative? And it's such an exciting place to be right now.
Definitely. I think there's a real feeling, rightly, that we're all in this problem together. We're all on the same team trying to solve the same problem. Whereas, and so that sharing is very open. And you see a lot of, big organizations like Hawkins Brown and Fielding Clegg Bradley, who release open source tools to help literally their competitors to do the same work that they do. And that is, exactly the kind of mindset we need, which I think in traditional sort of design, like architectural design, you would be much more cagey and much more sort of competitive, because you're literally competing on, in a sense, creativity, and in a sense because the stakes aren't as high as the end of life on Earth.
Yeah, exactly. Light topics,
I'm getting a sense from talking to you that you have this very multifaceted and broad view of sustainability, and I love the fact that you're talking about you're a mechanical engineer, but you're also just so passionate about a lemon tree that's in someone's garden. And I really, really appreciate that, and I love that you're not ignoring any aspect. It seems to me, as sustainability. You've also touched a lot on the social aspects, getting children involved, education, getting communities involved. Yeah, what do you think about that?
I think honestly it's the most exciting thing about working in buildings. If you can't think about a building in a holistic term and think about the context of that building with the community, with the users, where they're sourcing the materials, but their day-to-day energy, but also products from, I would find it quite boring just to be focusing on the mechanical systems. It's the collaboration between everything that makes it so important and what we need for this to flourish. Because if we keep thinking in silos and each team just focus on what they have to do for the structure or the architecture, we're not going anywhere. So it's really exciting position to be in.
I think it's quite a good time to be a jack of all trades in a sense, because that's what I tried to do as well, as I've sort of avoided so far in my career specialising in anything too much, which could be seen as a weakness, but actually I think it's great because it means you're able to look at the big picture and you're not too attached to anything. Like if you're like an expert in using concrete and then someone tells you concrete is not sustainable and we should stop using it, like what does that do to your ego, you know?
It's very true. It's very true. And it's something that at the beginning can be a bit nerve-wracking, because when they ask you a question about climate resilience, or when they ask you a very technical question on the methodology of this social return on investment, you sometimes cannot answer directly, but it's having that whole understanding that how everything just fits together. Yeah, I agree. I think this is the way forward, and the more that we do it, the deeper we will also go into all of these subjects. And yeah, we're really young and everything is just hitting off, so really cool.
Let's talk a little bit about London National Park City. I find it, as a ranger, in a sense, a difficult movement to explain to people who aren't involved in it, and I found it really difficult to explain to them what I do as a ranger. What do you tell people when they ask you about it?
Yeah, completely. When I say to people, oh yeah, I'm a London National Park City Ranger, they just imagine me walking around a park with a hat and some sort of badge and being like, I'm a ranger. But I agree, it's a little bit difficult, because what I tend to say is that a lot of different individuals that independently they have their own projects, or sometimes they don't have their own projects and they just want to be part of a bigger picture, of a part of a community, a part of a project. And so it's a lot of people coming together with that intention of making London greener, wilder, more full of arts. And just, you can play whatever role you want in this movement, which is the nice thing about it.
Yeah, I think that's what I've been sort of saying lately, is that it's so grassroots that I can't even tell you what success looks like, because everyone has their own idea of what a London National Park City is, and that's the point. You know, like that's not a flaw, that's by design. I see we've just got so there's the London National Park City charitable organisation, who I guess, you know, we interact with as rangers, but then there's also just, it exists as an idea. That and it exists as like a bunch of what if questions, which is like, what if we treated London as a national park? Like, would we think of it differently? Like, what if there was trees on every street? You know, what if there was fruit trees on every street? And you know, it doesn't necessarily have a set number of goals in mind, but it's sort of about sparking imagination about what's possible. Have you seen, in the community work you've been doing, have you seen people grab onto that? Has that been like a useful way of getting people involved?
Yes, I think so. I think, but more for me is the way that I've connected with the wider community through sharing those ideas, and people just not being part of it, but hearing about it, and then being able to access us, the rangers, in the different localities, and from there sparking communities. So that's what I've seen the most interesting, just the immense amount of connections that I've made with people from the local community. They're not London National Park City Rangers, but they just heard about it and saw that I was from the area and sparked a conversation. So, yeah.
Excellent. What are your sort of ambitions, I guess, to get out of being a ranger? What's next for you?
I think it's focusing in growing fruity walks in a way that it's collaborative with the local community, and really fighting for all of the public parks in London to have orchards, and that they're really well described and communicated, that there's informational boards at the entrance of all of these parks, Hyde Park, Victoria Park, Southwark Park, and that they become a hub of education for kids, and hopefully through London National Park City, it's easier to get in touch with the councils and the organizations running these. And I think that is such an equitable drive that moves me, that everybody can have that power of knowing that there's an orchard nearby and knowing that there's an apple tree that they can at one point then just try and taste it and interact with it. Exactly. I think it goes back to community and fostering community, and this is what London National Park City does so well, of bringing together all of these individuals and how we can all help each other. In our last meeting that we had together, one of the rangers was really forward with me and like, hey, you need people to make tags. I can make tags from wood. Like, let's do it. And it's like, yes, like that's exactly it.
I think something that has been made really clear to me through the National Park City is how much communities and local people want to be involved, but often they're not. In one hand, they're often not given the tools to do it, and then sometimes there's literally barriers in their way, put up in their way to stop them doing things. And I think there must be something at a sort of bigger organizational level that if we can sort of unblock those barriers and just give people a bit of help, there could be so much change, positive change across London and cities everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, completely. It's exactly that. You summarized it so well. We have so much power as individuals and we cannot lose sight of it.
Boom. I have a final question that I always ask guests. I'd be interested to hear what you say, which is that there's this idea that we're in this critical decade in terms of taking action on climate change. In fact, we're 2.5 years into the critical decade. So we have less than 10 years potentially to take the meaningful action that we need to on climate change, which is quite a high pressure thing to think about. But from your point of view, as someone who clearly lives and breathes this, what do you think needs to happen or change over the coming years?
It's such a loaded question, and I was just looking just today about the Earth Overshoot Day and how still knowing all of this, we're still living so much above our means. Like we're using nearly, I think last year was 1.7 worth of planets, of resources of the planet, and it's we need to stop being in this consumption-based society. That's the first thing. We need to live within our means. But I think to keep it more on the social, and as with the whole Fruity Walks theme, I think one of the most critical things that I would like to see is more community action and urban areas honing into communities a lot more, because I know very little of my friends. They would have people, they know people in their area, or they know people in their blocks or in their neighborhoods. Once you establish that community and you know your local vegetable market person, you know your local coffee shop person, and the people that live around you, that's when you can start making change and realize that your actions are impacting a community. It's, for example, like an orchard. If you as a community are working on this orchard, you see this orchard every day, you would never go there and take all of the apples for yourself, because you know the people living there. You know you need to share your resources with everybody, because it's everybody's livelihood and everybody's piece of joy. So I would say I would like to see a lot more community in the next 10 years.
Beautiful. That's a fantastic piece to end on. And I would say as well, when there's, we'll say, a shared resource like fruit tree or an orchard, people know not to take all of it, but they also know that they can take some of it. And that's a really beautiful thing as well, because I think there is a lot of fruit trees around London, but people don't necessarily know what to do with them. They don't feel allowed to take the fruit. And a lot of it, I guess wildlife will deal with it. But it is a shame that I think there's probably quite a lot of wasted fruit, in the sense that people who could really make use of it don't. Yeah.
That's such a good point, and it was one of the main things that drove me to this at the beginning. So many people will not feel like they can take it, exactly because they say, "Oh, but it's not my tree," or "Oh, it's just in the street, it might be poisonous or something,"
Yes,
you know.
exactly.
And you're like, no, but again, if we knew better our surroundings, we would know about this and we would feel welcomed. And I think that's a lot about tagging these fruit trees or having them in these public parks that are very clearly labeled, because then you have that permission in a way to be using that fruit completely. It's such a good point, and hopefully something that as people become more familiar with their surroundings, they stop fearing those situations.
Fear of nature. So people can find you at Fruity Walks on Instagram. Anywhere else you want to point people towards?
In terms of sustainable design, I guess the best place will be LinkedIn. And yeah, that's the main thing. Fruity Walks is a lot more fun though. It's a lot of me posting pictures with fruit trees and weird fruits. Yeah, I would say that.